Hey, it's Liz D'Alto, and this is the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untamed the Wild Soul Woman is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. What's up, wild ones? Welcome to episode number 166 of the Untame the Wild Soul podcast. Today is a Thirsty Thursday episode. This is where I dive into topics that may not apply to the general listenership, but enough of you have expressed interest in it that I wanted to cover it. So something that happens a lot in my Facebook groups and my programs is that people want to pick my brain about business. I get emails, I get Facebook messages about this, people essentially wanting to know how I do what I do. And, we have some links, we have some resources. I've been on a lot of other people's podcasts. I love going on business podcasts, talking about the origin story for Wild Soul Movement and how I do things in my business and things like that. And so I decided as part of this Thirsty Thursday series to also start answering some of these pick my brain questions. So I posted in the Wild Soul Woman Tribe Facebook group, which, by the way, if you're not a member and you'd like to be, that's where we have all kinds of deep conversations beyond the podcast, beyond the Untame Yourself book. That can be found at untameyourself.com/Facebook. So I posted in there and I said, hey, who wants to pick my brain about business? Ask me any questions you have. And there are a gajillion comments. That's the official number, a gajillion. So many comments. So I decided throughout the course of the year, I will go back to that post and I will gradually answer all those business type pick my brain questions. So today I'm tackling two of them. And both questions had follow-up comments from other people. So it's kind of like a four-parter here. And it won't take that long. So the first one, here was the question. As I write this, I feel anxiety running through my body as I've been playing with the idea of putting myself out there. My question is, did you feel fear as you started putting yourself out there and creating different opportunities? If so, how did you work through those fears? I feel like I have so much to share and create, but I'm paralyzed by doing so. It feels way too vulnerable for me sometimes. So I am a little bit of a weirdo in that I know most people are super scared to put themselves out there, to speak their truth, to use their voice, to be seen and things like that. That's never really been my hang up. I've kind of always been a feel the fear and do it anyway type of person. That's until I decided to stop doing fitness, which was like an easy mainstream thing to like talk about, teach about, share about online, on YouTube, on Facebook, and things like that, and getting into much deeper topics, some of which is more spiritually oriented, psychologically oriented, some of it's a little more esoteric, some of it's a little more subjective. And so I have experienced a bit more resistance when it comes to expressing my personal opinions and my personal beliefs and my personal views. And for me, that's partly because I'm not interested in creating drama or attracting negative energy or, having people judge me or give me unsolicited feedback or advice. However, I realized at a certain point that comes with the territory. So one of the things that really helped me was doing the personal internal work to get okay with being judged, having my words totally misunderstood and misinterpreted, people not perceiving my intentions accurately, and also, which for me, I find this to be the most irritating, which is when people project their own experiences onto yours. And they make all kinds of assumptions. They fill in all kinds of details that you haven't shared. Sometimes they leave condescending comments. Sometimes they give you unsolicited feedback and advice, whatever it is. If you are really committed to your creativity, to your self-expression, to serving, to putting your message out into the world, whatever it is, and to trusting and having real faith that if you have something to say, there's someone who wants to hear it, and that if someone is in front of you, you can absolutely help them, then you've got to be willing to get over that stuff. And what I really want to say on this is this: you don't have to swing the pendulum and go all in. All in does not have to look like sharing your whole life story, sharing everything all at once that you've been considering and building up for all these years. It's really okay to just do it one step at a time and test the waters, because even testing the waters is taking one small action towards what you want to create, towards who you want to be. So figure out where is your comfort zone? Figure out what's the edge. Where do you start to feel uncomfortable, nervous and vulnerable and all those things? And just walk yourself up to the edge. Play around at that edge, and then when you're ready, once you've done a couple of things just right at that edge, maybe stretch yourself and just step out of it a little bit, right? And I don't know what this person's like personal is. She wants to blog, she wants to create something, she wants to create a course or a program, whatever it is. Operate at the edge of your comfort zone. And after you do a couple things and you realize that you didn't die, you will build up resiliency. You will realize that I can totally do this. I just need to keep going, because the name of the game isn't get it all right the first time. The name of the game isn't I should know how to do this thing that I have no training in or I have no experience in. You got to take your licks. You got to earn your stripes. You have to put one foot in front of the other, see what happens when you do, get some data. Like, you need some data that you can only get from the real life experience. Because one of the reasons why you feel so much fear is because you're just sitting around thinking about it. And when things are just concept, when they're just theory, when they're just mental movies in your mind, worst case scenario is totally possible. But when you actually put it into the world and get some data, see what the real feedback is, it's often so much better than you could have imagined. And even if it's not, then you get to feel through, do I actually want to do this? Am I willing to put myself out there this way? But again, the only way to know is to actually do it. So my advice is, even baby steps are okay, but put one foot in front of the other, take some action, get something out there, because until you do that, you absolutely you don't have anything to be afraid of, because you haven't received any feedback yet. So I hope that makes sense. The follow-up to that was this. It says, excellent question, and clearly so many of us can relate. I launched my first program last month. The day I started printing, I was exhilarated, scared but excited. The next day, the vulnerability hangover was so intense, I fought with people I love, I abandoned all self-care, and I doubted myself huge. I caught myself and turned it around quickly, thankfully, but damn, it was so intense. So I appreciate that share so much, because that's an exact indication of what I was just talking about. This woman put herself out there. She put a program out there to beta test it with some people, and she realized the next day that it was like way too intense. And so if that's the case, next time you go to do something, don't go that far out of the comfort zone. It's okay to stay imagine being a kid, you're learning how to swim and you're in the pool, right? The first thing you do is you start where you can stand up. You start where there's no chance of your feet not being able to touch the bottom because it's not so scary. And then gradually you learn how to tread water. Okay, you might go a little bit deeper into the pool where maybe you can't reach, and so you stay by the side, so that even if your feet can't reach, you can still grab hold of the side of the pool if you feel scared, or if you start to feel like you're, flopping around, or that you might drown, or that you might go under, or you feel too intimidated. And then eventually, you don't need to be holding on to the edge of the pool. You could be right out in the middle of the deep end, treading water, going under, coming back up, and you're totally fine. All these little processes in your business as you begin to put yourself out there are kind of like that. So this woman who's just shared that example, she kind of dove into the deep end and realized, damn, it was a little much for me. And so maybe next time you make a choice that's more to the equivalent of being in the deep end, but holding on to the side of the pool. I hope my metaphors make sense for you guys. Essentially what I'm telling you is you have to gauge, how are your internal resources? How is your self-care? How is your energy? Do you have the capacity for it? A couple podcast episodes ago, we'll put it in the show notes. I forget the exact number, but the show notes for this episode will be at untameyourself.com/episode -166. I remember Sati and Raja talked about two things, willingness and capacity. So you might have low willingness if you're afraid, but you might have high capacity. The likelihood that you can handle more than you think is pretty high when you're not just scaring yourself out of your mind, right? And sometimes you have the willingness, but you don't have the capacity. So that last example, this woman had high willingness, and then she realized she kind of blasted out her capacity a little bit. So you just got to fine tune this stuff and figure it out. Honor where you are, respect where you are on the path, and know entrepreneurship is not a marathon. No one remembers who's winning in the third mile of a marathon. People only remember who finishes at the end, right? You remember if you finish at the end. Other people notice, especially if you do a good job. And so you want to be able to sustain the marathon. You want to be able to be in it for the long haul, not burn yourself out up front, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. So that was the first question about how do you deal with the fears of putting yourself out there. And after everything I just said, if you can only remember one thing, one step at a time. one step at a time, and then evaluate how you felt, what it was like, and if you need to correct course from there. But by all means, please take action. Just stay in action that creates momentum for you. If you just keep stopping and starting and stopping and starting, every time you stop, it makes it that much harder to start back up again. So to be taking these little actions over the course of time is going to create the momentum you need to build that resiliency, to build that capacity. So the second question I want to address in this episode is also about this startup phase. Someone asked, how do you make sure the need to earn an income doesn't kill your creative freedom? I'm trying to move out of debts and into business for ages already, but all those bridge jobs tend to earn me just enough to live and take up all my time. What's the way out and up? So here's my philosophy on bridge jobs. And if you don't know what a bridge job is, it's literally a bridge from one thing to the other. So maybe it's from a former career into where you want to be, what you want to be doing next. And so it carries you over. It helps you cross into the new thing. My theory on bridge jobs is this. Find something that you can do that even if it's not exactly in the realm of what you want to be doing in your business, it is in some way, shape, or form tangentially related enough that you can have some kind of enthusiasm about being there, that you're getting some kind of valuable experience, whether it's the contacts, whether it's practice, whether it's training, whether it's getting to be in a certain kind of environment that simulates the environment you'll be in when you're running your business, whether it's something that gives you the opportunity to have a mentor that relates to what you'll be doing, whatever it is. Do something that is related enough to what your long-term vision is that it feels like when you show up to that thing, you are showing up also in support of the future and not just for a paycheck. Because what I find with, passion-driven people, which I know you all are, is that doing things that we don't want to do is like really challenging. It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. I've never been built to show up for something just for a paycheck. I tried once. It was really funny. It was actually right before I launched Wild Soul Movement. I've probably told this story on the podcast before. I was literally running out of money and I'm like, I'm going to have to get a freaking job. And one of the skills that I've had since I was 19 years old is sales. My very first career for the first 5 years of my working life was in sales. And so I was like, I'm going to have to get a job. I know I can always fall back on sales skills, and sales happens to be good money and fast money. So I went and I got a job at this place in Marina Del Rey in Los Angeles, and I was going to be selling yacht cruises. And it was so funny because I went through this whole interview process. It took a week or two. I got the job. And right before I was supposed to start training, something came up. I had signed up for a yoga teacher training months ago that I was supposed to start. It was April of 2014. And so I told the guy, yeah, I'm good for training. I just can't come this week because I have yoga teacher training. And the guy looked at me and he's like, well, you can't go to that. And I was like, what? This is one of the reasons why we become entrepreneurs, right? Because we don't want people telling us what to do. And I'm like, well, I already paid for it and I'm definitely going. So what else can we work out? And the guy was pretty adamant about telling me I couldn't go. And I'm like, cool, then I can't do this job. And so, even that job though, yes, it would have been for a paycheck, but it also would have been an opportunity to meet and network with people in the area that probably could have been good connections for me otherwise. So when I was considering doing things, I was looking at, maybe it's a good networking opportunity. Maybe it's a good income opportunity. Maybe it's something that can just help me be more connected in the local community, whatever it is. So in finding a bridge job, that's what you want to think about. Because if it's just something completely unrelated with no benefits whatsoever connected to what you want to be doing, it's going to be really hard to show up for that. You're going to be super drained because it requires a lot of energy to show up for things that you don't actually want to be doing. So that's my advice on that. And someone else had shared that this was her dilemma too. She said, it's like I'm stuck in a loop of bridge jobs that take up all of my time, deplete me, and leave me with no energy to do my business. Yeah, again, I really think this is the solution. The solution is get a bridge job that pays you enough and also in some way, shape, or form is helping you either to build your skills, build your network, build your knowledge in your field, or something like that is in some way, shape, or form connected to what you actually want to be doing so that you can have some decent level of enthusiasm to show up for it every day. Even if it's only tolerable, it's easily tolerable, not a struggle to tolerate it. So that's that. That concludes our first Thirsty Thursday Pick My Brain About Business episode. Again, I want to remind you that the show notes here to links to anything that I mentioned during the episode will be at untameyourself.com/episode -166. If you have any additional follow-up questions, you can find us at untameyourself.com/Facebook. And if you have yet to leave the podcast a review and you're listening in iTunes, head on over to iTunes, leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show so that other people like you can find us as well. Thank you, and we will see you next week.
I grew up in a fairly religious household where prayer was very important. We went to church 3 times a week, and it was evangelical church. So it was very like Bible-based. And the greatest gift, I have like a lot of stuff to say about my mom, good and bad. But the greatest gift that she gave me was when she said, because we at the first church that we started at didn't even have a minister. It was just us doing Bible study. You have a direct connection with God that no man, no minister, no teacher, no guru can come in between.